So the workshop is a mess right now, and for good reason. Last night I just installed my B&W turnover ball gooseneck hitch on the Chevy. And yes, this is going to annoy a lot of people and perhaps piss a lot of people off that I installed a turnover ball gooseneck hitch on a half-ton truck. For some reason, people think that if you plow with a half-ton, if you tow with a half-ton, the world's going to come to an end. Well, you know what? That's not true. Yes, there are limitations. No, I don't plan to go out and buy a flatbed gooseneck trailer and tow like a Caterpillar dozer like you could with a 350 or 450. No. I plan to purchase a 2 or 3 horse gooseneck trailer within the towing limits of my truck, and I'm not concerned. But there's definitely going to be a lot of haters if you plan to do any kind of work with a half-ton. So just expect that. But the topic of today's video is I also just installed these LoadLifter 5000 airbags on the Chevy. And the reason I installed them is because of the amount of weight I plan to tow, which is still within the limits of my truck. I'd imagine it's going to put some tongue weight on the rear of the truck. And this is just going to help the truck to sit more upright and keep my headlights aligned properly. And you know, if you put too much tongue weight on the back of your truck, yes, I know there are limits on how much tongue weight you can put in the back of your truck. No, I don't plan to overload it. I can't stress that enough, but this is just going to aid the truck's suspension in handling this trailer that I plan to purchase. So one of the biggest questions I had when purchasing a set of airbags is, will it be able to work with my gooseneck hitch? And the answer is, if you drive a 2015 Chevy Silverado 1500 or similar year models, I'm not sure what range, you know, they keep the same structure with this truck, but if you have a 2015 Chevy Silverado and you buy a B&W turnover ball gooseneck hitch, the LoadLifter 5000 airbags will work with your truck. Now, you are going to have to do some modifications, and I'll take you under the truck and show you some of them. Now, one of the issues, the top bracket for the airbags, which again I'll show you, normally if you don't have a gooseneck hitch system installed, you would utilize these U-bolts, which these go over the top of the frame and they hold on the top bracket of the airbags. Now, because I have the side plates attached in my frame for the gooseneck hitch, you cannot utilize these, and you are going to have to do slight modification to the brackets of the LoadLifter airbags. You're going to have to cut off a piece. You're going to have to drill, I believe, a 5/16 inch hole, and you're going to have to use a self-tapping bolt, which it doesn't tell you to modify the brackets in the instruction, but I'll take you under the truck and show you why I had to modify it. Otherwise, this system would not have worked. Also, when I take you under the truck, there's some things that you really need to be aware of. You need to be aware of relocating and moving about some lines just to make sure that they don't rub. You are going to have to slightly bend some brake lines. You're going to have to relocate your emergency brake line that goes to the passenger side, which that's not a big deal. They include the hardware, and basically it sits a little low, so you unbolt the carrier from the top of the differential, and as opposed to the emergency brake line sitting down, the new bracket just has it sitting up a little bit higher. And also you'll see I did some other modifications, such as installing some wire loom over certain components of the truck. Not exactly wire, but components, just to make sure that I protect all my lines the best to my ability. So without further ado, let's get under the truck and I'll show you what's going on. Okay, so first things first, let's go take a look at the fender well here and see what this looks like. So there's the B&W turnover ball gooseneck hitch side plate, and then there's the LoadLifter 5000 airbags, and it looks really good in my opinion. Now, where I had to modify the mounting bracket is right here, and what I had to do, I had to cut a section off this bracket because otherwise it would be making contact with this side plate from the B&W hitch, and the bracket would be off kilter. And additionally, there's no way that you'd be able to get the U-bolts up over the frame there with this side plate. So that's what I had to do. And again, I'll show you that a bit better under the truck. I did have to do this on both sides. In terms of the air supply lines for the bags, of course, this line goes to the driver's side bag, that line goes to the passenger side bag, and I decided to mount them in the top of the license plate here. I also like this location, but I really didn't want to do any more drilling in the truck. It's really low profile. You know, nobody can really tell unless you really know what airbags are and what to look for. So like that it's low profile. The only damage I did to my truck is there's a plastic bushing in here that receives the screw that tightens down your license plate. I did have to drill that out a bit, so if I ever remove these airbags and these airlines, then just basically I'm going to have to use a set of bolts, nuts, and washers in order to reaffix my license plate to my truck, which no big deal there. So, geez, let's go into the truck and see what everything else looks like. Okay, so here's a look at the airlines coming out from the top of the license plate. And as you can see, they're covered with wire loom, and that's something that I added on my own. The kit does not include wire loom. I figured it'd be a good bit of protection to add to this system. And I believe that's 1/4-inch loom, so if you plan to get bags, probably a good idea to get 1/4-inch wire loom just to protect your nylon lines. Now, basically what I did, in case I ever had to move these fill ports in the future, on the left side and the right side, I left an extra loop of line just in case I need to relocate these. And there's the loop also up, goes around there, and then it comes out this way. I tried to keep it as close to the existing wire harness as possible. And also, I was just sure that where I put it, it wouldn't be coming, or it wouldn't come in contact with any of the brake lines. As you can see, it's really tied up out of the way, and it's not making contact with anything. Then, of course, it comes down to the airbag right there. I did add a zip tie. This is the emergency brake cable that goes to the passenger side. You do want to suspend that a little bit just to make sure that it's not going to make contact with the top of the bracket. And let me get turned around here, and you can see the other relocation kit that I was talking about. So, yes, I just painted my differential cover here, but the old bracket for the emergency brake line had it sitting right here. So you just unbolt that, install their provided bracket, and something that it doesn't mention in the instructions, but I did anyway, I took a pair of vice grips and I pinched this down to keep this emergency brake line suspended. Otherwise it'll sink down and it'll come closer to making contact with the top of that airbag, which you don't want. Okay, so clearly you can see the exhaust system. This is on the passenger side rear wheel. And the instructions state, sorry the camera's floating in and out of focus here, but the instructions state to make sure that that airline stays at least 6 inches away from the exhaust. Oh, come on camera. So basically what I determined the best routing option would be is to bend the line forward towards the front of the truck, and then as you can see I inserted it inside the frame, and then it runs back right here, and then it makes its loop, and then just returns to the license plate right there. And I thought that that was the best option. And you do have that wire loom on there, so hopefully that offers a little bit of extra protection, and I can keep an eye on that. If it does start getting too hot down here and that wire loom starts to melt, then I'm going to have to wrap the lines with something else, because there's no possible way to keep that airline any further away from the exhaust. So I have to try and figure out some type of heat wrap or something. Probably call the manufacturer and complain about that design. Okay, so I told you I had to modify the upper airbag mounting bracket, the part of the bracket that is closer towards the front of the truck. So when you first get the bracket, it has these ears on either side, and you can see where I cut off the ear that sits on the outside portion of the frame. And if I left that ear on there, it'd be coming into contact with this B&W hitch. So I told you earlier, if you don't have the B&W hitch, you know, the U-bolts are going to go up around the top of the frame. Because that wasn't a possibility, they do include this self-tapping bolt. And again, I believe you just have to drill a 5/16 inch hole, which that was a little bit challenging to do, and then you torque it down to, I think, instructions say like 15 foot-pounds of torque. So that's what I did there, and everything worked out well. Okay, so we're currently looking at the driver's side rear tire, and in this video I can't stress enough that you want to be aware of any spots where any lines, wires, or tubes may rub into one another. Now I'm going to show you something here. This is the emergency brake line for the driver's side rear tire, and this piece of loom I just added on here myself. Now here's the stock bracket. I did not modify anything, and if you look up here, look at that wear. And that's just from the rear axle going up and down, and it's sliding along this bracket here. But I mean, that's really starting to eat into the emergency brake line there. So I'm putting this wire loom in here now. I'm going to keep a close eye on it. And you can't put a zip tie here. You cannot do that and just try and hold it tight, because this needs to go up and down. I really should find a piece of tube or something to better protect that line, but I'm going to put a piece of loom in there for now. So, just really be aware. So I've not put any air in these bags yet. The instructions say for the first time that you're putting air in these bags, air them both up to 30 psi, then get under the truck with a spray bottle full of soapy water, spray all your connections, spray all the airbags, and just check for any leaks. And then there's an overnight test, and then also when the airbags are aired up, I just want to go under there and look again to see if any of the lines are rubbing on anything. And the instructions are very detailed. They also go on to say, between 30 days or I think it's 300 or 500 miles, whichever comes first, get back under the truck, recheck the torque of all the bolts, check to make sure your bags are still holding pressure, and see if anything's rubbing. Also, the instructions do say that after the first initial air up, it's normal to have a 2 to 4 psi pressure loss, but then it should maintain. So what I'd like to do now is just take a quick measurement of what the stock bed height is. 39 3/8 of an inch. Now we're going to air up these bags and see what that does to our ride height. Alright, so when I was airing up the bags, I think you guys could see on the video, clearly the rear of the truck raised up a good bit. Now the question is, how much did it raise it in the fender here? This is at 30 psi, by the way. So we were at 39 3/8. Now we're, depending on where I measure, I didn't really pick an accurate spot on the fender, but I gained about an inch. And if I gained an inch here, then it's probably like 1.5 to 2 inches in the rear. Now, I did bring it up to 30 psi. I'd imagine I could air up these bags even more and raise this up a little bit more, but then I kind of question, how's that going to affect the ride, especially when it's unloaded. The instructions do say, of course, if you purchase this, read the instructions yourself, but the instructions say to leave at least 5 psi in these bags. And whenever you have a load in the bed, have at least 25 psi. So, yeah, we're at 30 right now. I got to go into the truck and still check for leaks. I'm really excited to see what the ride's going to be like now.